With these remarks, I give the floor to Mrs. Natalia Gherman of Moldova to present her already distributed written vision statement and add some remarks to this within a 10-minute framework. Mrs. Gherman, please.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by thanking the President of the General Assembly and indeed the Member States for bringing this so much awaited revitalization to the work of the General Assembly and rendering the process of selection of the next Secretary General a very transparent and a very inclusive character. And I do applaud the way the informal dialogues with the candidates are conducted. I'm very honored to be here with you today. And I decided to become the candidate for the position of the Secretary General because I'm firmly convinced that the effective United Nations has never been so necessary or so demanded, whether working to end poverty, defend the scourge of war, respect the human rights, or saving our planet. And this responsibility requires our common determination and a Secretary General who will help translate it into a force of action for humanity. The 2030 Agenda, the Paris Climate Change Agreement, Addis Ababa Action Agenda offer us a clear path to fulfill our commitments and our aspirations. And I firmly believe that now is the time to turn to implementation with the objective of leaving no one behind. And this is the commitment that will guide my efforts and inform my decisions as Secretary General, provided that I am elected. And I'm also convinced that my previous experience in the service of my country, the Republic of Moldova, will be very relevant for the parameters of the job. I happen to have experience in all important fields of the United Nations agenda, in conflict prevention and crisis management, the sustainable development field, and also in the field of human rights. I also have the experience of managing the governmental activity in conditions of delivering more with less. And I think that the know-how of state building, the setting up and consolidation of important state institutions in rather challenging internal and regional environment is a very useful experience that I would be able to bring to the service of this organization and its member states. Operating under such conditions, you have to develop negotiations and consensus building skills, and you have to be able to reach out to virtually everybody, all stakeholders, promoting mutual understanding and respect. Another important ability is to adapt to stay relevant in an ever-changing environment. And I think this is also a very important task our organization is facing right now, and a very important criteria for the Secretary General's abilities. And it is particularly obvious when we speak about peace and security. The nature of conflict has changed, and the emergence of new actors and the scourge of terrorism represent serious threats to our common security. And no nation alone is capable to respond and to defend itself. We do it only with a global engagement and by means of a coordinated response. And the prevention must stay at the core of all our activities, which is the most cost-effective tool. The Secretary General should ensure that the Secretariat deploys most effective tools to strengthen early warning and rapid responses. And when the United Nations act, people are at the heart of our commitment. And while talking about the traditional activity of United Nations peacekeeping, for example, I would say that it has to be robust, agile, and efficient. And they should ensure that the mandate includes and focuses on, first and foremost, protection of the vulnerable groups of the population, most importantly women and children. And the Secretary General should further the capacity of the United Nations to offer quick response and timely deployment. Ladies and gentlemen, I consider that peace is a mindset, and the United Nations has to provide the conditions for such peaceful mindset to be sustained in a strong peace-building architecture where societies develop in a just, peaceful, and inclusive manner. Also, I firmly believe that women have to be enabled to participate and advance social cohesion, institutional building, peace and stability in all our societies. There is always a very important role for our partners, the regional organizations, community, religious leaders in our societies. The Secretary General and the United Nations have to act in a very integrated, all-inclusive manner, ensuring synergy at global, regional, and local levels. If we turn to the sustainable development field, the historic adoption of 2030 agenda highlighted a long-standing truth. There is no security without development, there is no development without security, and there is nothing without the respect for human rights. And the United Nations must work harder to deliver on the promises of new global partnerships for the citizens of the world. UN can support the member states to deliver on these commitments. It has actually a unique role to do it. And this is our collective undertaking that will require shared cooperation and also, I think, a shift of mindset. No effort should be spared to ensure that the solidarity among nations is displayed. And the solidarity, this word, of course, has a very special meaning for us Eastern Europeans. Without the resilient and stable societies, sustainable peace is very hard to achieve. Without strong and safe communities, many populations will continue to be victims of forced displacement and poverty. And this is what should stay at the heart of our challenges, and this is what will guide my efforts, provided that I am the next Secretary General in the service of the Member States trying to implement 2030 agenda. On human rights, ladies and gentlemen, since the inception, the human dignity of the organization, the human dignity has been at the core of the objectives of the United Nations. And we came to understand that this is not only the moral obligation, but this is very essential to achieve peace and progress. And I think that the Secretary General should promote the universality and indivisibility of the human rights. And this is also a commitment that each individual member state should display. Prevention, of course, remains key to avoiding large-scale violations of human rights. The UN has the responsibility to prevent mass atrocities and genocide, to protect the vulnerable populations. Ladies and gentlemen, the global humanitarian crisis also calls for an urgent and comprehensive response from the United Nations, from all of us. Over 120 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance, and over 60 million people are forced nowadays to leave their homes. The Secretary General, with the Member States, should ensure a coordinated response of the UN system and related agencies from the humanitarian and development sectors. And this is a huge task. We must ensure the synergy and we must use the resources effectively. UN needs to become stronger in order to deliver, and the Secretary General has the responsibility to the membership for effective running of the organization. Secretariat should be the purpose-driven, result-oriented, and truly global. And pour conclude, en sa qualité de plus haute fonctionnaire de l'organisation, le secrétaire général devrait donner la preuve de respect des valeurs.
Proof of respect of the United Nations principles in an area of ethics, truth, transparency, and responsibility. It should also be the same for zero tolerance policy vis-a-vis poor management, abuse, fraud, and conduct which goes against proper ethics. The Secretary General should promote an organization of the United Nations which values innovation and which remains open to reform.
President, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to bring the following issue as a key priority that would also guide my efforts if I'm the next Secretary General. We must learn how to communicate better to the citizens of the world. We must reach out to the peoples. We must make the United Nations better known and better understood, particularly for the younger generation, developing the sense of ownership among citizens, and developing a very important partnerships. And this endeavor should be the guiding principles of the next Secretary General and all of us who serve the United Nations system. I thank you.
Thank you, Madam Gherman.